Hey guys, Gaming Max was here. I had seen a video about 10 canceled champions for League of Legends, so I thought this would be a cool idea to go back and look at some of the champions before their reworks or redesigns. So without further ado, let's jump into our first champion. So first up, we've got Karma. Now, I always liked the old design of her. I always thought it was really cool. Her Q is just a cone. It shoots out some damage. Real nice, real simple. Her ultimate with her Q would give her some health back when she dealt damage in that cone. Her W, somewhat same as today. It would tether a target, but it wouldn't root it. If you passed over an enemy with it in the middle like she is doing on screen there, it would deal damage and slow, but if you passed over an ally, it would speed them up. I used to think this was really cool. I was around actually when this Karma was in the game. I know, this shit looks awful, but I was around when this Carmen was in the game, and it looked so cool. I always thought she was a really dope champion. Her E, still the shield, classic shield, but when she did use her ultimate with the shield, it would do some damage and a little bit of an AoE. I always thought that was nice. I kind of prefer that to what we have nowadays. But again, really love this champ back in the day. Never really played her, but I saw people play her. I always thought the design was really cool. Next up, we've got Sion. Some of these splash arts are super hard to find for the older champions just because, you know, they're so old. But anyways, we got Sion here. This guy, it was so fun back in the day. So you had two ways you could play him. You could play him full AP or full AD. Right here, you're going to see his stun. That little purple zigzag there is his stun. It had 0.9 scaling. So did this shield. They both had 0.9 AP scaling. So what you would do is build full AP, run up, hit him with that stun for 0.9 AP damage, and then blow up the shield for 0.9 AP damage. It was insane. Now you can see his axe getting a little red here. Every time he lasted a minion with that red axe, he would get a little bit of health and AD, and those green skulls that are floating around him are giving him 50 to 100% lifesteal. That's right. Back in the day, once Sion hit 16, he would get 100% lifesteal. So you guys could build this guy AD, AP, whatever you wanted to do, and he would just do incredible amounts of damage. Super basic champion, just stuns and auto attacks, blows up a shield, done and done. But again, super crazy shit back in the day when League of Legends was this old. And guys, I unfortunately couldn't find LOL spotlights for all these guys, so I am using some skin spotlights, as you'll see. All the links will be down below. So our next champion is going to be TF. I had to do it. This guy is a classic champion. Back in the day, TF's R was on his E, yes. So he had a global teleport on about a 30-second cooldown on his E. Completely nuts, absolutely crazy. Now you might notice here, we got Freak critting a little bit here. The reason for that is not the items he has, which is the Madrid's Razors, by the way. Just threw all of you back to season like 2 and 3 right there. But it's TF's passive. Back in the day, it used to give him crit chance. I believe it gave him 3, 4, and or 5% crit chance. Obviously, not really that great of a stat, not that great. The passive he has nowadays is a lot better. As well as TF's first iteration of pick a card was just going to be a silence. He was going to just basically pick a card, and then when he hit him with it, it would silence the enemy. But obviously, they changed it for his pick a card we know today, which is the stun, slow, and mana card. He also used to have an ability called Exhaustion. I think that was his first passive, but they never really implemented it into the game. It is on the LOL wiki. That's where I get all this info from. But yeah, there was no description on it, but he did have something called Exhaustion at some point. Next up, we've got Katarina. I had to do it because she's been changed twice now. She's been reworked twice. This is the last time she was reworked. It was the, from the point and click kind of Katarina where her Q just kind of bounced around. The W and E would break the seal, and then she had her classic Death Lotus ultimate. I really loved this Katarina, so that's kind of why I threw it in there. I loved playing this against Yasuo, actually, and maxing W, so that way he'd win wall, but you just W there with your Sinister Steel and just be able to run away. The last iteration of Katarina was actually very interesting. The first one, her W was not the Sinister Steel, it was something different, and what it would do is buff either her Q or E, whichever next ability she used. So if she pressed W then Q back in the day, which again I couldn't really find any video on that, when she pressed W, her Q would bounce to, the other targets, but it would do the full damage, the entire damage. Or if she pressed W then E, her Shunpo would make her take reduced damage. So they obviously got rid of that W, put in a new one. Shunpo, of course, reducing damage regardless now, and the Q just doing less damage per past the first target. But yeah, I really loved Katarina. I still love to play her nowadays, but she's definitely a lot harder than she was back in the day. Next up, we got Heimerdinger. This guy has gone through a big change here. So starting with the turrets, they change color depending on what level they are. So they would start as green and they would end as red. Red ones would do a little bit of an AoE splash damage, which is pretty cool. I don't even know if that's actually still in the game, but that is definitely something that's very, very interesting. The other really interesting thing is the W. It was not a skill shot. It was just, an on-hit ability. Basically, if somebody was in range of your rockets, you just press W and it went to them. It just hit them. You couldn't stop it. It just did. We were all about on-hit abilities back in the day. Now everything is a skill shot. Lastly, his grenade has changed as well. You might see it a few times in these clips, these old clips. The E, the grenade, it just floats at people. It's really weird and floaty. It also used to blind. It was very, very interesting. And, I'm glad that he's gotten an update, because this old Heimerdinger, while it looks kind of, archaic, it was pretty fucking bad. It looked like shit, and I'm glad he's gotten an update. Next up, we've got Mord. Kingery reworks. His rework, so strong, but we got to start from somewhere. His first iteration here is going to be that his Q was just, a little on-hit thing. They updated it eventually where it would hit one person and it would spiral into a cone effect, kind of, hitting people behind him in a close range. His W kind of has stayed the same throughout the years. Obviously not anymore, but in the second iteration, it could obviously be put on another party member, another teammate. But for this iteration, he could only put it on himself or a teammate. His E, a nice little cone, and then the ultimate, just, that dot that would turn you into his ghostly minion. Next up, we got the disgusting boy himself, Urgot. This champion I always thought was really interesting back in the day. I always thought his ultimate was kind of crazy, but we'll get to that in a second. So he would shoot his Q, and his passive was that he would take reduced damage from the target he was autoing by 15%. For 2 seconds, and obviously he could keep refreshing that with autos. Then he would turn on his little shield here for some slow. When he Q'd and had his W up, it would slow. And then with the E, he could shoot targets over things. His Q was normally a skill shot, but if you landed the E on somebody, you could just keep mashing it, and eventually those Qs would just fly over and hit whomever had been hit by the acid there, whoever your mouse was over. But again, his ult, I always thought it was super weird. It would basically swap places with an opponent, and I always just thought, why would you want to put yourself in a bad spot just to get an opponent in there, especially if they have a dash or something? And I think Riot did realize that, and that's kind of why they reworked him. Next up, we got LeBlanc. Now, LeBlanc has gone through some changes, and she's kind of back to where she was in the beginning, but with one less key detail. So obviously her Q was still the same back in the day. It applied that mark to the enemy character, and then when you W'd, E'd, or R'd, it would break that mark and do a lot of damage. The W, still a dash, the E was still a chain, and the R was still the mimic ability that we all have today. But one big key difference is when LeBlanc broke that mark, it would silence. Yeah. So, as you can imagine, this would be pretty fucking irritating if you were, she QW'd you and then you wanted to do some damage back, but you couldn't because she had silenced you. Yeah, it was super irritating to play against. I remember playing against it back in the day when I was a little bronze noob and had no idea what was going on. I'd get silenced and be like, why can't I hit her? What's going on? So, yeah, I felt like I had to include her because she was just so annoying back in the day and just so busted. Next up, we've got Xerath. I really liked this version of Xerath, and I'll tell you why as we go through it. But to start it off, his passive, per 100 AP, he would get 15 armor. So, 200 AP, he'd have 30 armor, and so on. I always thought that was really cool, like a mage that only needed to build magic resist. His Q, obviously the same as the Q we know today, but the W, he would root himself and gain extra range. I always thought this was super cool. gaining range on all his abilities by rooting himself, and the range was pretty significant. It was pretty cool. I really liked it. And the E is not the E we know today. It would mark a target, and if they were hit by his Q or R, they would then be stunned again. Really, really liked this iteration of Xerath. It was super cool. As you can see here, his R kind of looks like his modern day W. Again, I really like this version because you could get some serious range in team fights with this and still be stunning and doing a lot of damage. So I really miss this version of Xerath. I never really got to play it much before he got changed. I never really played Xerath all that much, but I did really like it, and I do wish I could see it again. Last but not least, another champion I wish I could see again is Classic Gragas. I had to put this in because I mained this champion. I played it back when it was super broken. I've got this little montage here from somebody else to show you just how broken it was. You would basically just QR and it would kill people. The only difference from today's Gragas and the past Gragas is that his E did not knock up and you couldn't move while drinking or Wing. It was kind of broken, but I mean, I loved it, so I had to put it in here as number one. I was doing this kind of stuff back in the day, and I do definitely miss it. I really liked the champion as like a really consistent mid laner, but you know, I definitely think he's a lot more balanced than he was. So, hope you guys enjoyed. See you later. Stick around, subscribe, whatever you want to do, and yeah, later.